Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Naruto was the last survivor of an ancient clan. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The silence in Naruto's apartment was a physical entity. It was a thick, cloying blanket that muffled the distant sounds of Konoha's evening bustle and amplified the ones that truly mattered. The drip, drip, drip of the leaky faucet, the hum of the aging refrigerator, the soft rustle of an empty instant ramen cup skittering across the floor in a phantom draft. It had been 3 weeks since the mist cleared over the great Naruto bridge, 3 weeks since he'd watched Haku crumble into crystalline ice and Zabuza carve a bloody path to his own redemption. 3 weeks, and the ghosts of that battle lingered more tenaciously than any shadow clone. He'd seen death. He'd seen Sasuke, brilliant, infuriating Sasuke, become a pincushion of Saban to protect him, a crimson tomo spinning to life in his eye. The memory was a hot coal in his gut. Sasuke had awakened the Sharingan. Sakura, though terrified, had shown unshakable resolve. And him? He had tapped into a monstrous power he didn't understand and couldn't control. He'd won, but it felt like a borrowed victory, a tainted one. The whispers of the villagers, the glares that had been his constant companions since birth, seemed to have a new edge to them now, a fresh layer of fear. This feeling of inadequacy gnawed at him. It was why he was here now, sitting cross-legged on his dusty floor, ignoring the growling emptiness in his stomach. Kakashi-sensei's tree-walking exercise was supposed to be the key. A simple, elegant lesson in chakra control. Sasuke had mastered it in hours. Sakura, with her perfect textbook control, got it in a day. Naruto was still struggling, his bursts of powerful but unwieldy chakra blasting him off tree trunks like a misfired cannon. "It's not about power, Naruto," Kakashi had said, his visible eye curved in that infuriatingly placid crescent. "It's about precision. Find your center. Feel the flow. Don't force it." "Easy for you to say," Naruto grumbled internally, squeezing his eyes shut. "You're not fighting a monster for every scrap of control." Tonight, he would try something different. Jiraiya's brief, clumsy lesson from years ago had mentioned meditation as a way to get to know one's chakra. Naruto had always found it boring, but desperation was a powerful motivator. He took a deep breath, trying to mimic the calm posture he'd seen old man Hokage assume behind his desk. He focused inward, past the phantom taste of pork ramen and the chill of his room. He tried to find his chakra. At first, there was nothing but a chaotic buzz, the static of a restless mind. He thought of Sasuke's cool confidence, of Sakura's worried frown, of the third Hokage's kind smile. He pushed those thoughts away. He needed to go deeper. He focused on the seal on his stomach, the source of all his problems, the swirling black ink that was a permanent brand of his otherness. Slowly, a sensation emerged. It was familiar, a rushing, vibrant river of energy. His own chakra. It was blue and boisterous, a roaring current eager to be unleashed. This was the chakra he used for his shadow clones, for his transformation jutsu. It was wild and plentiful, but as difficult to hold onto as water. He tried to gather it, to shape it into a calm, steady pool as Kakashi had instructed. But as he focused on the seal, on the very heart of his being, he brushed against something else. It was a presence he knew with primal terror. A tide of malevolent energy surged forth, so potent it felt like a physical blow. It was hot, searingly hot, like boiling tar mixed with jagged shards of glass. It screamed with a hatred so ancient and profound it defied comprehension. It was the rage of a caged god, the fury of a natural disaster given consciousness. Red, toxic, and utterly suffocating. The Kyuubi no Kitsune. His breath hitched. His muscles tensed, every instinct screaming at him to pull back, to open his eyes, to run. Usually he did. He would recoil from that font of malice, content to skim his own chakra from the surface and leave the depths undisturbed. But not tonight. Tonight, the memory of Sasuke's blood-flecked face was too fresh. The need to be stronger, to be better, was a fire in his veins. No, he thought, his mental voice a defiant shout against the beast's psychic roar. You're inside me. I should be the one in charge, damn it. He didn't pull back. He pushed. With a grunt of raw effort, Naruto forced his own consciousness deeper, straight into the teeth of the Kyuubi's oppressive chakra, trying to find the bedrock of his own energy beneath it. He was a swimmer diving into a polluted, churning sea, searching for the clean currents below. The Kyuubi's rage intensified, lashing out at his intrusion. Images, not his own, flooded his mind, forests burning, mountains crumbling, the terrified screams of thousands. He felt the phantom pain, the agony of 100 jutsu tearing into a colossal body, of being ripped from a warm place and forced into a cold, hateful cage. It was overwhelming, and he felt his own small well of chakra starting to be consumed by the inferno. He was losing. He was being drowned, and then, just as the red tide was about to swallow him whole, he felt it. It was a hum, a single, impossibly pure note that resonated from the very epicenter of the storm. It was nothing like his own chakra, and it was the absolute antithesis of the Kyuubi's. Where the fox's energy was a chaotic shriek, this was a perfect, harmonious chord. Where the fox was scorching heat, this was the gentle, pervasive warmth of the first rays of dawn on a cold morning. Curiosity warred with terror. What was this? He pushed harder, using the hum as a beacon. The Kyuubi's chakra recoiled from the sound, hissing and boiling away from it like water on a hot skillet. For a brief, incredible moment, a path cleared in the maelstrom of hate, and Naruto followed it. He plunged his consciousness toward the source of the hum, and his perception of the world dissolved. He was no longer in his apartment. He was in the sewer. His mindscape. The familiar, grim place he'd visited once before in a moment of crisis. Water sloshed around his ankles, the pipes overhead dripped with a foul-smelling liquid, and before him stood the gate. Massive iron bars, reaching into an oppressive darkness, were held together by a single piece of paper with the kanji for seal. Behind the bars, the great eye of the nine tails snapped open, a slit of pure, murderous crimson. Insolent gnat! The voice boomed, shaking the very foundations of his soul. You dare pry into my cage? Naruto stumbled back, the raw power of the voice a physical force. But this time, something was different. The hum was here too. It was faint, but it was growing, emanating from the paper seal on the gate. He watched, mesmerized, as the black ink of the Uzumaki spiral, the work of his father, began to shimmer. A delicate, golden light bled from the edges of the kanji. It wasn't a firefly's glow. It was the steady, confident light of a distant star, impossibly bright and utterly serene. The golden light began to trace new patterns over the existing seal, patterns Naruto had never seen before, concentric circles, impossibly complex geometric shapes, and kanji that seemed to be written in pure light, shifting and rearranging themselves in a silent, cosmic dance. The Kyuubi saw it too, and its rage turned to something else. Fear. A deep, primal terror that Naruto had never imagined the beast could feel. No! Not this! I will not be shackled by this light! The fox lunged, its colossal form a tsunami of red chakra and claws, slamming against the bars of the gate. The gate groaned, the metal bending under the titanic assault. But as the Kyuubi's chakra touched the glowing golden patterns, it sizzled and evaporated into harmless vapor. The golden light flared, and the bars of the cage, which had always been dull iron, began to shine with the same celestial luminescence. They became pillars of solidified sunlight. The Kyuubi roared in agony and fury, recoiling as if it had touched a holy fire. It wasn't just being contained, it was being purified. The very essence of its hatred was being negated by this serene, unyielding energy. Naruto was caught in the crossfire. The Kyuubi's psychic scream of rage was a nail being hammered into his skull. The golden light, in contrast, was an overwhelming wave of peace, so absolute and powerful that it threatened to erase his own consciousness, his anger, his ambition, his very identity. It was the feeling of a single drop of water trying to comprehend the entire ocean. The clashing energies, one of absolute chaos, the other of absolute order, met in the middle, with his fragile human consciousness as the epicenter. The strain was too much. The world of his mindscape fractured like glass. The golden light, the red rage, the sewer, the cage, it all collapsed into a singularity of blinding white. And then darkness. A throbbing headache was the first sign of his return to the land of the living. It was a dull, pounding ache behind his eyes, a stark contrast to the profound emptiness that had preceded it. He groaned, a dry, raspy sound in the quiet of his room. His body felt immensely heavy, every muscle protesting as he pushed himself into a sitting position. He blinked, his vision swimming. The world came back into focus slowly, first as a blurry collection of shapes, then with startling clarity. His room was different. The air, usually stale and smelling faintly of expired milk and cup noodles, was crisp and clean, like the mountain air after a thunderstorm. The relentless drip, 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 from the kitchen sink was gone. There was only silence. A peaceful silence, not the lonely one he was used to. Then he saw the light. It wasn't coming from his window. It was coming from him, from the floor all around him. He looked down, and his breath caught in his throat. All over the wooden floorboards, surrounding the spot where he had been meditating, were glowing patterns. They were the same patterns he had seen in his mindscape, etched onto the floor in lines of soft, golden light. They formed a massive, intricate mandala. Concentric circles pulsed with a gentle rhythm, interwoven with geometric shapes of breathtaking complexity. And within them, characters that looked like kanji, but were far more elaborate, shifted and flowed like liquid gold. They were beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien. He was the center of it all. The light seemed to be emanating from his body, projecting these luminous blueprints onto the floor. He lifted a trembling hand. It was faintly aglow, a tracery of golden lines visible just beneath his skin, converging on the seal on his stomach. Hesitantly, he reached out and touched one of the glowing lines on the floor. It felt like static electricity and warm sunshine, a pleasant tingle that vibrated up his arm. He felt a strange sense of familiarity, the echo of a forgotten lullaby. This light, it didn't feel evil like the cubies. It felt safe. Protective. He scrambled backward, away from the patterns, his heart hammering against his ribs. What was this? Was this the cubies doing? A new, insidious trick? But the cubie had been terrified of this light, so what did that mean? Was there something else inside him? The thought was so horrifying that it made him feel sick. Being a vessel for one monster was bad enough. Was he a living prison for two? As his panic grew, his breathing becoming short and ragged, the golden light began to flicker. The intricate patterns wavered, their lines becoming indistinct. Within seconds the light receded, pulling back into his body as if being inhaled, until the last mote of gold vanished. His room was dark again. The air was stale. And from the kitchen he heard it, drip. It was as if it had never happened. He stared at the empty floorboards, at his own non-glowing hands. If it weren't for the lingering warmth under his shirt and the ghost of a headache, he would have thought it was a dream. A hallucination brought on by hunger and exhaustion. Knock, knock, knock. The sudden, sharp rap on his apartment door made him yelp, scrambling to his feet. Naruto? You in there? It was Kakashi. Naruto's mind raced. What could he say? Hey, sensei, I think there's a second, glowing, geometry-loving thing living in my gut along with the giant fox demon. Also, it fixed my sink for a minute. He'd be shipped off to the hospital for a psych evaluation. Naruto, I'm coming in. The lock clicked. Kakashi never waited for an answer. The door swung open, revealing his teacher. Kakashi wasn't in his usual slouch. He was tense, his body coiled like a spring, his single visible eye wide and alert. He took one step inside and stopped, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on Naruto. Are you all right? Kakashi's voice was low, stripped of its usual lazy drawl. I felt a chakra fluctuation. A massive one. Naruto swallowed, his throat dry. I am fine, sensei. Just training. Yeah, trying that tree-walking thing again. Maybe I pushed a little too hard, believe it. He punctuated the lie with a shaky grin and a thumbs up, a gesture that felt flimsy and pathetic. Kakashi's eye narrowed. He wasn't buying it. His gaze was so intense it felt like a physical weight. I felt two signatures, Naruto. One was the Nine Tails. It was agitated. The other. He trailed off, taking a slow step closer. The other was something I've never felt before. It was calm, controlled, but immense. It dwarfed my own. Naruto's fabricated bravado crumbled. He looked away, staring at the spot on the floor where the light had been. I don't know what it was, he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. I was meditating. I tried to push past the fox's chakra. And then, there was this light. This golden thing. Kakashi was silent for a long moment. Naruto chanced to look up at him. The Jonin's expression was unreadable, but the air around him crackled with tension. The seal, Kakashi said, his voice quiet but firm. Let me see it. A knot of dread and shame tightened in Naruto's stomach. He hated the seal. He hated people looking at it, reminding him of what he was. But the look in Kakashi's eye was not one of idle curiosity. It was one of grave urgency. Wordlessly, Naruto lifted the hem of his orange shirt. The black ink of the 8 trigram seal stood out starkly against his skin, a permanent vortex over his navel. It looked the same as always. Kakashi knelt, his face inches from Naruto's stomach. For a moment, he just looked. At first glance, it's just the 4th masterpiece. The 8 trigram seal, perfectly balanced. He reached out, his fingers hovering just over the seal, not quite touching. He closed his eye. But the residue, the echo of that second chakra is still here. It's centered right on the seal. Kakashi's hand began to glow with the faint blue of his own chakra as he channeled a minuscule amount, using it as a sensor. His eyes snapped open, widening in shock. What is it? Naruto asked, his voice trembling. Incredible. Kakashi breathed, leaning closer. His gaze was locked onto the seal with an unnerving intensity. It's not part of the ink. It's layered underneath. Or woven within it. Microscopic. What is? Markings, Kakashi said, his voice a mixture of awe and alarm. Fuinjutsu formulas, but not like any I've ever seen. They aren't written in ink. They look like they were etched with light itself. They're dormant, almost completely invisible, but for a moment, I can see them. They're far more complex than the primary seal. It's like... He struggled for a comparison. It's like looking at the blueprints for a skyscraper hidden inside the design of a simple house. Minato-sensei was a genius, but this is something else entirely. This is ancient. He finally pulled back, standing up. The lazy, perpetually bored Jonin was gone, replaced by a shinobi who had just glimpsed something that could rewrite everything he thought he knew. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Stay here, Kakashi commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. Don't try to meditate again. Don't try to access whatever that was. Just eat some ramen and go to sleep. That's an order from your sensei. Before Naruto could form a reply, Kakashi was gone in a swirl of leaves. Naruto stood alone in the oppressive silence, his hand resting on his stomach. He could still feel it, a faint, deep warmth that seemed to answer his touch. Ancient markings. Etched in light. Something beyond his father's genius. For the first time in his life, he looked down at the seal, and alongside the familiar dread and resentment, there was a new, terrifying, and exhilarating emotion, wonder. Kakashi didn't run, he flowed. He moved through the rooftops of Konoha not as a man, but as a flicker of motion, a ghost in the twilight. The usual stops, the memorial stone, Ichiraku Ramen, his lonely apartment, were forgotten. There was only one destination. He landed silently on the balcony of the Hokage Tower and phased through the closed door, reappearing in the Hokage's office without a sound. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sat behind his mountain of paperwork, a lit pipe dangling from his lips. He didn't look up, his pen scratching away at a document. This is an unscheduled and highly irregular visit, Kakashi, Hiruzen said, his voice calm but laced with the authority that had commanded armies. It must be important. It's Naruto, Kakashi said, his voice tight. The scratching of the pen stopped. Hiruzen slowly placed it down, his gaze lifting to meet Kakashi's. He took a long, slow puff from his pipe, the smoke curling around his wrinkled face like a shroud. What has he done now? He's done nothing. Something has happened to him, Kakashi corrected. He recounted the evening's events concisely, the dual chakra spike, Naruto's confused explanation, and the discovery of the secondary, hidden seal. He described the light-etched markings, the feeling of ancient, overwhelming power. As he spoke, The kindly old man facade fell away from Hiruzen Sarutobi. The lines on his face deepened. The warmth in his eyes was replaced by the flinty hardness of a kage facing a crisis. When Kakashi finished, the office was utterly silent save for the ticking of a clock on the wall. Hiruzen slowly removed the pipe from his mouth, his knuckles white where he gripped it. So, he murmured, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that held the weight of decades of secrets. The time has come. He stood, his movements stiff. He walked not to his bookshelf, but to a blank section of wall behind his desk. He pressed his palm against it, channeling a precise amount of chakra. The wall shimmered, and a section slid away, revealing a dark, cavernous vault lined with scrolls and protected by a dizzying array of shimmering barrier seals. Lord Third? Kakashi asked, his visible eye wide with shock. He had served under Hiruzen for years and had never known this vault existed. Hiruzen ignored him, his focus absolute. He navigated the complex seals with a practiced hand, his fingers dancing through the air, whispering incantations. One by one, the barriers dissolved. He reached deep into the vault, past scrolls labeled with the names of legendary clans and forbidden jutsu, and retrieved a single, heavy scroll. It was bound not in paper, but in some kind of pale, smooth hide, and held shut by a complex lock of interlocking brass and jade. There were no elaborate titles, no warnings, just a single, stark kanji brushed onto its surface and what looked like gold dust. 10 Heaven. Hiruzen carried the scroll back to his desk and placed it down with a heavy thud. He stared at it, his expression a mixture of sorrow, awe, and profound weariness. He looked like a man staring down the barrel of history itself. When Minato and Kushina prepared to seal the 9 tails, Hiruzen began, his voice distant. They knew the risks. They knew the burden they were placing on their son. Minato, with his brilliance, created the perfect lock. But Kushina, she provided the key. He gently ran a finger over the golden kanji on the scroll, a deep and abiding sadness in his eyes. She knew the Uzumaki bloodline would give Naruto the vitality to survive being a Jinchuriki. But she feared the Kyuubi's hatred would eventually poison him, consume him from the inside out. So, she left him a second inheritance. A secret she carried her entire life. A power far older and perhaps even greater than that of the tailed beasts themselves. He looked up at Kakashi, his eyes boring into the younger man's. What you saw tonight, Kakashi, was not an accident. It was a failsafe, a legacy waiting for the moment Naruto was strong enough, or desperate enough, to reach for it. He let out a long, smoky sigh, the weight of the world settling on his old shoulders. So, Kushina's failsafe has begun to awaken. The sun rose over Konoha, painting the sky in strokes of soft pink and brilliant orange, but Naruto saw none of it. He hadn't slept. How could he? The memory of the golden light, the silent, intricate patterns, and the Kyuubi's uncharacteristic terror played on a loop in his mind. He had paced the small confines of his apartment until the floorboards creaked in protest, his hand repeatedly straying to his stomach, half hoping to feel the warmth again, half fearing it. The world outside his window seemed muted, distant. Kakashi's order to eat some ramen and go to sleep felt like a directive from another lifetime. Sleep was an impossibility. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the clash of energies in his mindscape, the roaring, hateful crimson of the fox, and the serene, unyielding gold of the thing. The other thing. He was sitting on his bed, staring at the wall, when the knock came. It wasn't the sharp, impatient rap of a landlord demanding rent, nor the hesitant tap of a classmate. It was a single, precise, and utterly impersonal knock. Before he could even call out, a voice spoke from the other side of the door, flat and devoid of emotion. Naruto Uzumaki. The Hokage requires your presence. Immediately, Naruto's blood ran cold. He recognized the tone. It was the sterile cadence of the ANBU Black Ops. He'd only ever heard it in passing, from the masked figures who guarded the Hokage or appeared in flashes of shadow during emergencies. They never came for him. He scrambled to the door and pulled it open. 2 figures stood there, clad in the standard gray flak jackets and white, animal-faced porcelain masks. One wore the mask of a weasel, the other a cat. They stood perfectly still, their posture radiating a lethal stillness that made the hair on Naruto's arms stand up. Lord Third wants to see me? Naruto asked, his own voice sounding small and reedy. Am I in trouble? The cat-masked ANBU tilted its head slightly, an unnervingly human gesture for something so inhuman. Your questions will be answered by Lord Hokage. We are your escort. Please come with us. It was not a request. The journey to the Hokage Tower was a surreal experience. Normally, Naruto would have bounded through the streets, shouting greetings, causing a minor ruckus. Today, he walked in a bubble of enforced silence, flanked by the two ANBU. The villagers, who were just beginning to start their day, stopped and stared. Their usual glares of suspicion and fear were now tinged with a morbid curiosity. They saw the pariah, the village demon, being formally escorted by the Hokage's elite guard. Whispers followed them like a foul wind. What did he do now? Look, the ANBU have him. It must be serious. Good. Maybe they're finally locking him up for good. Naruto clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. He ducked his head, his bright orange jumpsuit suddenly feeling like a beacon of shame. He wanted to scream at them, to tell them he was a hero of the wave, that he was a shinobi of the leaf, just like them. But the words died in his throat, choked by the cold, professional presence of his guards. They didn't take the main entrance. The ANBU led him around to a discreet side door, through a series of sterile, windowless corridors he never knew existed, and up a spiral staircase that seemed to climb into the very heart of the tower. They stopped before the familiar wooden doors of the Hokage's office. The weasel-masked ANBU knocked once, then opened the door and gestured for Naruto to enter. The air in the office was thick with tension. It was so heavy Naruto felt he could taste it, a metallic tang of ozone and old paper. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was not behind his desk. He stood by the large window overlooking the village, his back to the door, his formal Hokage robes immaculate. His usual kindly grandfather persona was nowhere to be seen. This was the god of shinobi, the Kage who had led them through wars, and he was not alone. Kakashi stood near the wall, his arms crossed. His single eye was fixed on Naruto the moment he entered, its expression grim and unreadable. He offered no lazy wave, no crinkle of a smile. The sight of his sensei looking so serious sent a fresh spike of anxiety through Naruto. Naruto, Hiruzen said, his voice a low rumble. He turned from the window, his face a mask of solemnity. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper today, etched by the weight of a secret he had carried for too long. Thank you for coming so promptly. You didn't really give me a choice, old man, Naruto mumbled, unable to stop the words from tumbling out. He gestured vaguely toward the door. You sent your spooky masked guys. A faint hint of a smile touched Hiruzen's lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. A necessary precaution. What we are about to discuss is a matter of the highest sensitivity. It does not leave this room. Do you understand me, Naruto? This is an S-rank secret. Naruto's jaw tightened. S-rank. The same classification as forbidden jutsu and the identities of spies. Whatever this was about, it was bigger than anything he had ever been a part of. He gave a jerky nod. Good, Hiruzen said. He walked to his desk but didn't sit. Instead, he looked at Kakashi. Report. Kakashi's gaze shifted from Naruto to the Hokage. It is exactly as I told you last night, Lord Third. I have sealed the room in this apartment to prevent any residual chakra from leaking, but the signature I detected was unmistakable. Two colossal forces clashing within him. One, the Nine Tails. The other, something else. Hiruzen's eyes settled on Naruto. Tell me again, in your own words. What did you experience? Naruto's throat felt tight. He recounted the events, his voice starting as a hesitant whisper and growing stronger as the memory became more vivid. He described the meditation, the deliberate push into the Kyuubi's hatred, the feeling of drowning. Then, he described the hum. It was, like music, Naruto struggled to explain, gesturing with his hands. But not. It was just a feeling. A warm, gold feeling. The fox hated it. It was scared, old man. I've never felt it scared before. And then I was in front of its cage, and the seal was glowing. He described the new patterns, the lines of light, the cage bars turning from iron to gold. It felt like my head was being torn in two. Then I woke up, and the patterns were on my floor. Hiruzen listened with rapt attention, his old eyes seeming to see right through Naruto, into the chaotic depths of his soul. When Naruto finished, the Hokage let out a long, slow breath. "It seems my time for keeping secrets has come to an end," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. He walked around his desk, his gaze falling upon the heavy, hidebound scroll that sat upon it, the scroll from the hidden vault. Naruto's eyes were drawn to it immediately. It seemed to hum with a latent energy, the single golden kanji for heaven, shimmering faintly in the morning light. "What is that?" Naruto asked. "It is a memory," Hiruzen said softly. "A message. A last will and testament left for you, Naruto. By your mother." The world tilted on its axis. Naruto's breath hitched. His ears roared. "My mother?" The words were alien on his tongue, a concept he had only ever read about in books or seen in the lives of others. A mother was a warm smile, a comforting hug, a packed lunch. For him, the word had always been a hollow space, an unanswered question. "My mother?" he croaked, his voice cracking. You knew her? You told me you didn't know who my parents were. You said they died during the Kyuubi attack. I told you what I had to protect you," Hiruzen said, his voice laced with a deep, profound regret that cut through Naruto's shock. "Your parents' identities were a dangerous secret. Your father, as you now know, was the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. A man with many powerful enemies. But your mother's identity was an even greater secret. Her very existence was a threat to the world's balance of power." He gestured to the scroll. "Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. She was, like you, a Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails before you. She came to Konoha from the land of whirlpools, the home of the Uzumaki clan, famed for their powerful Fuinjutsu and incredible life force." Naruto stared, trying to process the flood of information. Kushina Uzumaki. A name. His mother had a name. And she was like him. "But that is only half the truth," Hiruzen continued, his voice dropping lower. "The Uzumaki were her adopted clan, a people who took her in and gave her their name to hide her true lineage. Kushina was born the last survivor of a clan thought to have vanished from the world centuries ago. A clan so powerful, so unique, they were considered living gods by some, and abominations by others." Hiruzen paused, letting the weight of his words settle. She was the last of the Amatsukami. The name meant nothing to Naruto, but the way Hiruzen said it, with a mixture of reverence and fear, sent a shiver down his spine. "The Amatsukami, the celestial gods," Hiruzen explained, "were not shinobi in the traditional sense. They did not wield elemental ninjutsu as we do. Their art was something far more fundamental. They were masters of a unique Kekkei Genkai called Seiko no Fuin, the seal of sacred light." He tapped a finger on the golden kanji on the scroll. "They could draw in the pure, untainted energy of the natural world, what they called celestial energy, and weave it directly into Fuinjutsu. Their seals weren't just ink on paper, they were constructs of pure order. They could create barriers that were conceptually unbreakable, purify the darkest chakra, heal wounds by restoring the body's natural state of being, and impose absolute harmony on chaos." Naruto's mind flashed back to the golden light, the serene hum, the way the Kyuubi's violent chakra had simply evaporated against it. Harmony on chaos. Their power was absolute, Hiruzen said grimly. And anything absolute is feared. Centuries ago, a coalition of the burgeoning shinobi clans, terrified of a single clan holding such godlike power, united to exterminate them. They succeeded. The Amatsukami were wiped from the face of the earth, their history erased, their sanctuaries sealed, all except for one small child, who was smuggled away and eventually found a home among the Uzumaki, her true name and power buried for her own protection. He looked at Naruto, his eyes filled with a sorrowful understanding. "That child was your mother's ancestor. The secret was passed down through the generations, a dormant power, a whispered legend, until it manifested again, strongly, in Kushina. She lived her life in fear of that power, hiding it from everyone, even from me, for many years. She knew what had happened to her people." Naruto felt dizzy. It was too much. A legendary clan? Celestial gods? A power that could purify the Kyuubi? It sounded like a fairy tale. And he, Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last, the prankster, the village outcast, he was a part of it? So, that light. Naruto began, his voice trembling. That was her power? My power? It is your birthright, Hiruzen confirmed. A legacy she passed on to you. And this, he patted the scroll again, is her explanation. A chakra echo scroll is a special kind of seal. It stores not just a message, but a fragment of the creator's own chakra, their very essence. When activated by a compatible chakra signature, in this case, her own blood, it allows her to speak to you, one last time. Tears pricked at Naruto's eyes. A chance to hear her. A chance to finally meet his mother, even as a mere echo. The fear and confusion that had been churning in his gut were suddenly overshadowed by a desperate, aching need. How? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. How do I do it? Hiruzen slid the scroll across the desk toward him. Place your hand upon the seal. Channel your chakra. Not the fox's. Your own. She will do the rest. Naruto approached the desk on unsteady legs. Kakashi watched him, his usual detachment completely gone, replaced by a look of intense, vicarious anticipation. Naruto reached out a trembling hand, his fingers hovering over the ancient hide, over the glowing golden kanji. He took a deep, shaky breath, closed his eyes, and pressed his palm flat against the scroll. The moment his skin made contact, a warmth spread from his palm up his arm, a gentle, welcoming heat that felt like coming home. He focused, pushing past the ever-present rage of the Kyuubi, and offered his own chakra, that boisterous, vibrant blue energy that was uniquely his. The scroll responded instantly. The golden kanji flared with a light so brilliant it forced everyone in the room to shield their eyes. The complex lock of brass and jade clicked open, and the scroll unfurled on its own, rolling out across the desk. It was completely blank, and then, from the center of the scroll, a light began to coalesce. Golden particles of energy, like fireflies in twilight, swirled up from the parchment. They spun and danced in the air above the desk, weaving together, slowly forming a humanoid shape. The light intensified, taking on the form of a woman. She was tall and slender, with long, flowing hair that cascaded down her back like a river of liquid gold. Her features were indistinct, made of soft light and shadow, but the impression was one of breathtaking beauty and profound strength. A voice, warm and melodic, filled the silent office. It wasn't a sound that entered through the ears, but a feeling that resonated directly in Naruto's soul. It was the voice he had unknowingly yearned to hear his entire life. Naruto! Naruto gasped, tears now flowing freely down his cheeks. He couldn't speak. He could only stare at the luminous figure of his mother. Oh, my sweet boy, the golden silhouette of Kushina Uzumaki said, her form shifting as if in a gentle breeze. Her head tilted, and though she had no discernible eyes, Naruto felt her gaze upon him, filled with a love so immense it was a physical force. Look at you. So big. So strong. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I'm so sorry we had to leave you with such a terrible burden. A spectral, golden hand reached out, not quite touching his cheek, but he could feel its warmth, its tenderness. I don't have much time, her voice continued, a note of urgency entering her tone. This echo is tied to the first awakening of your Amatsukumi blood. My blood. Listen carefully, my son. The world thinks of Jinchuriki as weapons, as monsters. But that was never our intention. Your father and I, we sealed the nine tails inside you not just to save the village, but to give you the power to protect yourself, and to one day guide the world. The silhouette of Kushina shifted, her light flaring as she spoke of her heritage. The power you felt last night, the seal of sacred light, is your true inheritance. It is the power of order. The power to calm, to purify, to restore. The Nine Tails is a creature of immense power, but also of immense hatred, born from a lonely, violent existence. It is the ultimate embodiment of chaos. Do you see, Naruto? We didn't just give you a curse. We gave you the lock and the key. She gestured towards his stomach. Your father, the greatest sealing master of his generation, used the 8 trigram seal to create the cage. It is the perfect lock, strong and resilient, but I layered my own art within his. Hidden within Minato's masterpiece is an Amatsukumi seal of my own design. I call it the cradle seal. The name itself was a comfort. Not a cage, not a prison. A cradle. It is not designed to simply contain the fox, Kushina explained, her voice ringing with passion. It is designed to help you tame it. The cradle seal resonates with your Amatsukami blood. It acts as a filter, a harmonizer. It will allow you to slowly, carefully, draw upon the Kyuubi's vast chakra while purifying it of its malevolent will. You will not be borrowing the power of a demon, my son. You will be reclaiming the raw energy of nature and cleansing it with your own light. You will turn its rage into strength, its hatred into power. You will not be its jailer, you will be its master, its guide. It was a staggering revelation. The seal on his stomach, the source of all his pain and isolation, wasn't a curse. It was a tool, a dual-layered masterpiece of love and sacrifice, designed by his parents to give him a fighting chance. His father's genius and his mother's secret, ancient power, working in tandem. For him, this path will not be easy. Kushina's voice grew softer, tinged with sorrow. The world is not ready for the return of the Amatsukami. There are those who would seek to control your power, and those who would seek to destroy it. You must learn in secret. You must grow strong in the shadows, until your light is too bright to be extinguished. Her form began to flicker, the golden particles starting to lose their cohesion. I cannot teach you myself, my love. But I can guide you. Our clan, we did not vanish completely. We left behind places of learning, hidden from the world, sealed by our power. There is a sanctuary, the first place you must go. It is hidden on the outskirts of Konoha, a place of great power and great sorrow, where two legendary rivals once fought. In the shadow of the valley where giants fell, look for the unadorned torii gate that time has forgotten. The sanctuary is sealed. It will only open for one of my blood who carries the burden of the great beast within them. It will recognize you, Naruto, the Valley of the End. Naruto's eyes widened. Kushina's silhouette was fading faster now, becoming translucent. The golden light was receding back into the scroll. Be strong, Naruto. Be kind. Eat your vegetables, and don't be a picky eater. Find friends who you can trust with your life. And find a girl, like your mother. Her voice wavered, filled with a mother's final, simple wishes. Know that we never stopped loving you. Not for a single second. My greatest regret is that I won't be there to watch you grow. The golden hand reached out one last time and brushed his cheek. This time, Naruto felt it, a fleeting touch of pure warmth and unconditional love. I love you, my son. Make us proud. And then, she was gone. The light vanished. The voice faded. The scroll on the desk rolled itself back up with a soft whisper of parchment, the jade and brass lock clicking shut. It was just a scroll again, blank. Inert. The silence that descended on the room was absolute. Naruto stood frozen, tears streaming down his face, his hand still outstretched to the empty space where his mother had been. He could still feel the phantom warmth on his cheek, could still hear her voice echoing in the deepest chambers of his heart. I love you. 3 simple words. Words he had craved his entire life. He had a mother. He had a father. They hadn't abandoned him. They had died protecting him, and in their final moments, they had blessed him with a legacy beyond his wildest imaginings. He sank to his knees, his body trembling with the force of his emotions. It was all too much. The grief of a love he'd never get to experience in person, the joy of knowing he was loved, the staggering weight of a new destiny. He wasn't just Naruto Uzumaki, the knucklehead ninja. He wasn't just the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki Amatsukami, the last son of 2 powerful lineages. The heir to a divine power, a forgotten history. The seal on his stomach was no longer a brand of shame. It was a cradle. A gift. A testament to his parents' undying love. He looked down at his hands, then slowly clenched them into tight fists. The weight on his shoulders felt heavier than ever, but for the first time, it wasn't the dead weight of a curse. It was the profound, empowering weight of a legacy. He had a purpose now, one that went beyond becoming Hokage. He had to understand this power. He had to master it. For his parents. For himself. He finally looked up, his blue eyes, red-rimmed from crying, holding a new and unfamiliar light, a flicker of ancient resolve. Hiruzen and Kakashi watched him, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and awe. They had just witnessed a boy, broken and alone, be reborn as the heir to a legend. The path forward was fraught with danger, but for the first time in his life, Naruto Uzumaki was not walking it alone. He was walking it with the last wish of his mother lighting the way. The echo of Kushina's voice, a melody of pure love, still resonated in the silent space she had left behind. Naruto remained on his knees, the polished floor of the Hokage's office cold against his skin, a stark contrast to the warmth blooming in his chest. His tears had subsided, leaving salty tracks on his cheeks, but his body still trembled with the aftershocks of the revelation. He wasn't an orphan in the abstract sense anymore. He was the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Amatsukami. He was the product of genius and divinity, of sacrifice and a desperate, boundless love. He slowly, reverently, reached for the scroll. It felt inert now, a simple object of hide and metal, but to him, it was the most precious treasure in the world. He clutched it to his chest, a poor substitute for the maternal hug he had been denied his whole life, but it was something. It was real. Lord Third Kakashi's voice was quiet, cutting through the thick, emotional atmosphere. Her words, a sanctuary near the Valley of the End. What are your orders? Hiruzen Sarutobi looked down at the kneeling boy, his expression a complex tapestry of sorrow, pride, and grim calculation. The grandfatherly figure was gone, replaced wholly by the Hokage. The order is secrecy. This changes everything, Kakashi. The existence of the Amatsukami, even as a single heir, is a secret that could destabilize nations. If Orochimaru were to learn of this, or Danzo, or the other villages. He left the sentence unfinished. The implications were dire enough to be understood without words. He walked over to Naruto and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Naruto looked up, his blue eyes, though red-rimmed and puffy, held a fire Hiruzen had never seen before. The unfocused, defiant spark of a troublemaker had been forged into the sharp, focused flame of purpose. Naruto, Hiruzen said, his voice firm but kind. Your mother has given you a destination. A legacy. It is my duty to help you claim it, and to protect you while you do. You will go to this sanctuary? Naruto's head snapped up, hope warring with trepidation. Now? Right now? The sooner the better, Hiruzen confirmed. A power like this, awakening without guidance, is a danger to you and everyone around you. You need to learn control. Kakashi will accompany you. Kakashi straightened from his position against the wall. Lord Third, with all due respect, I have no knowledge of this. Amatsukami art. I can protect him from physical threats, but against something like this? He gestured toward Naruto. I would be a mere spectator. You are more than a bodyguard, Kakashi, Hiruzen corrected, his gaze unwavering. You are his teacher, his commander, and the only other person in this village, besides myself, who knows the truth. You are Minato's last student. It is fitting that you watch over his son as he steps into his mother's legacy. You will be my eyes and ears. You will observe, you will learn, and you will ensure that whatever power Naruto unlocks is tempered with the will of fire, not consumed by its own brilliance. The weight of the responsibility settled on Kakashi's shoulders. He gave a sharp, formal nod. Understood. What about my team? Naruto asked, scrambling to his feet, the scroll still held tight. Sasuke and Sakura. What do I tell them? You will tell them nothing, Hiruzen stated plainly. As of this moment, Team 7 is temporarily suspended. I am assigning you and Kakashi to a specialized Fuinjutsu training mission at a remote location. It is classified. Sakura will be given supplementary lessons at the academy, and I will have a Jonin work with Sasuke on his elemental affinity to keep him occupied. It is a necessary deception. Naruto's heart sank a little. He hated lying to his friends, especially now, when he finally had something that wasn't a curse. But he saw the logic in the Hokage's command. This was too big. The Valley of the End, Hiruzen mused, walking back to the window. It makes a certain kind of sense. The clash between Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha saturated that entire region with an incredible amount of natural energy. A perfect place for a clan that drew power from such things to build a sanctum. But it is also a place of grim history, Naruto. Be on your guard. He turned back, his expression softening slightly. Go home. Pack for a journey of indeterminate length. Kakashi will meet you at the main gate in 1 hour, and Naruto. He paused, a genuine, warm smile finally gracing his features. Your parents would be so incredibly proud of you. The journey from the heart of Konoha to its outskirts was a study in contrasts. The village was a symphony of life, merchants hawking their wares, children laughing as they played ninja in the streets, the distant clang of hammers from a smithy. It was the world Naruto knew, the world he had fought to be accepted by. But as he and Kakashi moved further south, following the Naka River, the sounds of civilization faded, replaced by the whisper of the wind through the trees and the steady crunch of their own footsteps. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else, an almost electric tang of latent energy. The trees here were ancient behemoths, their bark gnarled and their branches forming a dense canopy that cast the forest floor in a perpetual twilight. The sunlight that did break through came in slanted, dusty beams, like spotlights in a grand, silent theater. Naruto was uncharacteristically quiet, his usual boisterous energy turned inward. He walked with a new sense of gravity, his eyes scanning the ancient woods, not for enemies, but for a sign, a clue. Kakashi walked beside him, his single eye flicking back and forth, ever watchful. Sensei, Naruto said, breaking the long silence. His voice was soft. Did you know her well? My mom. Kakashi was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. Not as well as I knew your father, he admitted. Minato-sensei was my teacher, my hero. Kushina-san, she was like a force of nature, incredibly kind and cheerful one moment, and absolutely terrifying the next if you crossed her. She had a temper that could make seasoned jonin take a step back. A small, fond smile touched the corner of his visible eye. She called it her habanero side. She loved your father fiercely. And she was so excited to be a mother. In the months before you were born, it was all she could talk about. Hearing these small, personal details made Kushina feel more real than the grand, luminous figure from the scroll. A woman with a temper, who loved her husband, who couldn't wait to hold her son. A fresh pang of loss, sharp and painful, pierced Naruto's heart. This power, the Amatsukami, Naruto said, his hand subconsciously going to the seal beneath his shirt. She must have been so scared, having to hide it all the time. She was one of the strongest people I ever knew, Kakashi said simply. To carry the nine tails and a secret that could get her killed, and to still be so full of life and love. Yes, that takes a strength beyond any jutsu. They walked on, the silence returning, but it was a more comfortable silence now, filled with shared memory and a new, fragile understanding. They were nearing the valley of the end. Naruto could feel it. The energy in the air was so thick it was almost suffocating. He could feel the echoes of the cataclysmic battle fought here, the phantom rage of Madara, the resolute sorrow of the first Hokage. It was a scar on the world, a place of profound violence, and somewhere in the middle of it all was supposed to be a place of peace and light. It seemed impossible. My mother said to look for an unadorned torii gate, Naruto mumbled, more to himself than to Kakashi. A torii gate would mark the entrance to a sacred space, Kakashi noted. But we're far from any known shrines. And to remain hidden for centuries, it won't be obvious. They searched for another hour, combing the dense woods near the cliff edge overlooking the valley. They found nothing but ancient trees and moss-covered rocks. Naruto was starting to feel a familiar frustration bubble up inside him. What if he'd misheard? What if the sanctuary had been destroyed? He closed his eyes, forcing down the panic. Calm down. Think. How did I find the other thing? He had focused inward. He had felt for it. He took a deep breath and tried to do the same now. He ignored the oppressive ambient energy of the valley and searched for that other signature, the one he had felt in his apartment. The serene, golden hum. At first, there was nothing. But he persisted, focusing on the memory of his mother's voice, the feeling of her love. And then he felt it. A faint, pure note, almost completely drowned out by the noise of the valley, like a single flute playing in the middle of a battlefield. It was coming from the east, deeper into a thicket of gnarled, overgrown trees. This way, Naruto said, his eyes snapping open. He plunged into the undergrowth without a second thought. Naruto, wait! Kakashi called, but followed close behind. Naruto pushed through thick vines and low-hanging branches until he broke through into a small, secluded clearing. And there it was. It was exactly as Kushina had described. A simple stone torii gate, so ancient and weathered it seemed to have grown out of the earth itself. It was completely unadorned, with no carvings or paint. Thick, twisted vines, as thick as a man's arm, coiled around its pillars and crossbeam, and a layer of dark green moss coated its surface, making it blend almost perfectly with the surrounding forest. It looked less like a structure and more like a natural rock formation. Without knowing what to look for, or feel for, one would walk right past it. Incredible, Kakashi breathed, coming to a stop beside Naruto. It's been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Naruto approached the gate slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. It felt like stepping onto holy ground. As he drew closer, the faint hum he had been tracking grew stronger, resonating not in his ears, but in his bones. He reached the threshold of the gate and stopped. A voice suddenly filled the clearing. It was not male, nor female. It was ancient, disembodied, and resonant, like the tolling of a great, distant bell. It spoke directly into their minds. The sanctuary sleeps. It awaits the heir. Naruto and Kakashi froze, spinning around to find the source of the voice, but the clearing was empty. Only one who carries the blood of the Amatsukami made petition for entrance. Only one who bears the greatest chaos within them can unlock the path. Naruto looked at Kakashi, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. That must be the guardian she mentioned. He took a shaky breath and turned back to the gate. That's me. I have the blood, and I have the chaos. He stepped under the crossbeam and reached out, his hand trembling, and placed his palm flat against the cold, moss-covered stone of the pillar. For a second, nothing happened. The stone was just stone. Cold. Lifeless. A sickening knot of doubt tightened in Naruto's stomach. What if I'm not enough? And then, a wave of hostile energy erupted from within him. The Kyuubi, silent until now, felt the touch. It felt the ancient, holy power sleeping within the stones of the gate, and it reacted with instinctive, absolute fury. No! The psychic roar slammed into Naruto's consciousness, a wave of pure, unadulterated hatred. Not this. I will not be caged by this filthy light again. A torrent of blistering red chakra surged from the seal on Naruto's stomach. It was far more violent than the flare-up in his apartment. It wasn't just leaking, it was a volcanic eruption. The air around Naruto shimmered with heat. The moss on the torii gate sizzled and crisped into black ash where his hand rested. The ground beneath his feet cracked as the demonic energy flooded out. Kakashi staggered back, his hand flying to his kunai pouch. Naruto! Get control of it! He yelled, but his voice was drowned out by the sheer psychic pressure. The Kyuubi's hatred was a palpable thing, a suffocating blanket of malice that promised death and destruction. Naruto gritted his teeth, his body shaking uncontrollably. The fox's chakra was trying to consume him, to use his body as a weapon to destroy this sacred gate. He felt his own consciousness starting to slip, drowned by the rage. My son. You will not be its jailer, you will be its master, its guide. His mother's voice. The memory cut through the red haze like a bolt of lightning. He wasn't just a container. He was the key. He had a choice. No! Naruto screamed back, not with his voice, but with his will. Get back! You are in my body! I am in charge! He focused all his intent, all his desperate need, all the love he felt for the parents who had given him this chance, and he pulled. He pulled on the serene, golden hum that lay dormant within him. He called to it, and it answered. A brilliant, golden light erupted from the seal on his stomach. It wasn't hot and violent like the Kyuubi's chakra. It was a calm, steady, inexorable tide of pure energy. It flowed through his chakra network, not like a flood, but like a cleansing river. Golden lines of light, the Amatsukami seals, appeared on his skin, glowing brightly through his jumpsuit. The red chakra recoiled as if struck. The golden light formed into luminous, ethereal chains that wrapped around the surging demonic energy. They didn't crush it. They contained it. They held the maelstrom of chaos within a perfect, ordered lattice of light, and the violent crimson began to quiet, the psychic screaming fading to a furious, resentful growl. Naruto could still feel the fox's power, immense and terrifying, but its will was being held in check, separated from its raw energy by the golden filter of the cradle seal. With the Kyuubi's chaos contained, the Torii Gate finally responded to Naruto's blood. The stone where his hand rested began to glow with a soft, golden luminescence. The light spread rapidly, racing up the pillars and across the crossbeam. The thick, ancient vines encasing the gate did not burn away. They transfigured, turning into ropes of pure, woven light. The moss dissolved into shimmering golden dust. The entire gate was now a structure of solidified sunlight, pulsing with a gentle, rhythmic beat that matched Naruto's own heart. Kakashi watched, his visible eye wide with utter disbelief. He had seen thousands of jutsu in his lifetime, from the simplest academy techniques to S-rank forbidden arts that could level mountains. He had never seen anything like this. This wasn't ninjutsu. This was a miracle. This was the power of a god. The solid form of the gate began to waver, its lines becoming translucent. With a sound like 1,000 wind chimes singing in harmony, the gate dissolved. It didn't crumble or explode. It simply unraveled into a swirling vortex of golden light, which then parted like a curtain, revealing a path that hadn't been there a moment before. The path itself was made of the same glowing, golden stone, leading into a shimmering distortion in the air, a heat haze that promised a world beyond. Naruto, panting heavily, sweat beading on his forehead, lowered his hand. The golden glow on his skin faded, and the red aura around him completely vanished. He felt drained, but also incredibly, vibrantly alive. He had faced the Kyuubi's full fury and, with his mother's gift, he had won. He took a hesitant step onto the glowing path. It was solid under his feet, warm to the touch. He turned to Kakashi, a wide, exhausted, but triumphant grin spreading across his face. "Well, are you coming, sensei?" Kakashi, shaking himself out of his stupor, could only nod mutely and follow his student into the light. The moment they both stepped past the threshold where the gate had been, the world dissolved. The familiar sights and sounds of the forest vanished, replaced by a momentary, disorienting sensation of weightlessness. When reality reasserted itself, they were standing in a place that defied all logic. They were in a pocket dimension. Before them stretched a vast, circular chamber, so large that the far wall was hazy with distance. The sky above was not a sky at all, but a massive, concave dome that shimmered with a living tapestry of fuinjutsu. Golden lines of light, the same impossibly complex seals Naruto had seen on his floor, flowed across the dome like celestial rivers, forming constellations of kanji and geometry that pulsed with a soft, dawn-like glow, illuminating the entire space. In the exact center of the dome, where a sun should be, hung a colossal, slowly rotating crystal. It was perfectly clear, but it captured and refracted the light from the sealed dome, scattering rainbows across the chamber. It hummed with a low, harmonious frequency, the source of the energy Naruto had tracked, the very heartbeat of this place. The floor was made of a pale, polished stone that reflected the celestial light from above. In the center of the chamber, directly beneath the great crystal, stood a compound of buildings. The architecture was elegant and simple, a style Naruto had never seen before. It was all clean lines and graceful curves, constructed from a pale wood that seemed to glow faintly from within and the same polished stone as the floor. There was a large, open-air dojo with a flawlessly smooth wooden floor, a multi-storied pagoda that could only be a library, its doors invitingly open, and several smaller, serene-looking halls connected by covered walkways. The entire compound was surrounded by a meticulously manicured garden, complete with a tranquil pond fed by a small, crystalline waterfall that seemed to fall from nowhere. The water in the pond glowed with a faint silver light. There was no dust, no decay, no sign of age. The air was perfectly still, clean, and vibrated with a gentle, calming energy. It was a place outside of time, perfectly preserved. "It's beautiful," Naruto whispered, his voice full of awe. This was his heritage. This was the home of his ancestors. "It's impossible," Kakashi breathed, his single eye taking in everything, the mind of a shinobi trying and failing to deconstruct what he was seeing. This level of fuinjutsu, of spatial manipulation, it was beyond anything documented. It was the work of gods. As they stood there, absorbing the breathtaking sight, the light from the great crystal overhead intensified. It coalesced, flowing down in a stream of pure energy toward the center of the dojo. The light gathered, swirled, and began to take shape. It formed a humanoid figure, roughly the height of a tall man, but it was androgynous and featureless. It was composed entirely of the same flowing golden lines of light as the seals on the ceiling, a living construct of fuinjutsu and energy. It had no face, no clothes, but its form was solid and its presence was undeniable. The being of light turned its featureless head toward them. When it spoke, its voice was clear and melodic, genderless and ageless. It was not the booming voice of the gate guardian. This voice was calm, patient, and precise. It was the voice of a teacher. "Welcome, heir of Kushina," it said. "I am Akari. I am the warden, the librarian, and the instructor of this sanctuary. I am the will of the Amatsukami, given form to preserve our knowledge until your arrival." Naruto stared, speechless. He had expected a stuffy old ghost, or maybe another disembodied voice. He hadn't expected this. Akari seemed to look at him, its glowing form tilting. "The Gates trial has confirmed your lineage and your burden. Your mother's final directive, imparted to my core programming moments before her death, was to await you. My purpose is to guide you, to pass on the entirety of the Amatsukami's knowledge, so that our legacy does not die with you." You're going to teach me?" Naruto asked, his voice filled with a hopeful tremor. "I am," Akari confirmed. "We will begin with the fundamentals. The art of the Seiko no Fuin is not about hand signs or brute force. It is about intent, clarity, and inner peace. It is the art of imposing perfect order upon the chaotic energies of the world." The being of light raised a glowing hand, and a small, perfect sphere of golden energy formed in its palm. "Your success at the gate was a triumph of instinct," Akari stated. "A desperate, reactive surge of power driven by your will to survive. It was impressive. But it was not control. It was a shield you raised in a panic. True mastery is learning to wield that power as a sword, a pen, a tool, shaping it with conscious thought." Akari's featureless head tilted towards Naruto, and he felt a sense of profound, analytical intelligence focused solely on him. "Therefore, your first lesson is this," the light being declared, its voice echoing slightly in the vast, silent chamber. "You will learn to summon the sacred light at will. You will learn to feel it, to hold it, and to command it. You will not wait for the chaos within you to force your hand. You will learn to be the calm at the center of your own storm. Your journey to becoming an Amatsukami begins now." The sanctuary was a world of perfect, perpetual dawn. The light that bathed the vast chamber was gentle and warm, emanating from the celestial tapestry of seals woven into the dome above. It was a light that promised peace, that hummed with a quiet, ancient power. For the first few hours, Naruto was simply mesmerized. He wandered the silent, elegant compound with Kakashi, his footsteps echoing softly on the polished stone. He ran his hands over the smooth, glowing wood of the library's pillars, peered into the crystalline waters of the pond where fish made of pure silver light swam in lazy circles, and stared up at the colossal, rotating crystal that served as the sanctuary's heart. It felt less like a hidden ninja training ground and more like a temple from a forgotten myth. It was his birthright. The thought sent a thrill through him, a mixture of pride and crushing responsibility. His guide, the being of light named Akari, was a constant, silent presence. It flowed rather than walked, its form a shimmering collection of golden lines that held a perfect humanoid shape. It answered Naruto's questions with a calm, logical precision that was both helpful and deeply unnerving. "Who built this place?" Naruto had asked, staring at the flawless architecture. "The first Amatsukami, in an age before the founding of the hidden villages," Akari replied, its voice a genderless melody. "This sanctuary, one of several, was constructed as a repository of knowledge and a haven for meditation. It draws ambient natural energy from the region, significantly amplified by the historic battle fought in the valley above, and refines it through the primary crystal. The dome's fuinjutsu array then converts that energy into the stable environment you perceive." Kakashi, who had been listening intently, interjected, "You're saying this entire dimension is powered by the aftermath of the first Hokage's fight with Madara?" Correct, Akari stated. The clash of their immense chakra saturated the ley lines of the land for kilometers. It is a potent, if emotionally chaotic, source of power. The sanctuary draws it in and purifies it, a macrocosm of the very art it is designed to teach. The sheer scale of it was hard to comprehend. This place was a living engine, a self-sustaining world built on principles that made Konoha's most advanced barrier ninjutsu look like a child's scribbles. Finally, after the initial tour, Akari led them to the center of the vast, open-air dojo. The floor was a single, unbroken expanse of the same pale, faintly glowing wood, impossibly smooth and warm to the touch. The air you feel is natural, air of Kushina, Akari said, its form turning to face Naruto. But admiration will not grant you mastery. Your mother's will was clear, you are to be taught. Your journey begins with the first and most fundamental pillar of the Amatsukami art, Seishin no Chawa, the harmony of the spirit. Akari gestured for Naruto to sit. The Seiko no Fuin is not a jutsu you perform. It is an extension of your being. It is not powered by the chakra you need in your gut, but by the serene, natural energy of the world around you, channeled through a tranquil spirit. You will not use hand signs. You will not shout a jutsu's name. You will simply will the sacred light into existence. Your intent is the hand sign. Your inner peace is the catalyst. Naruto sat cross-legged, trying to mimic the solemnity of the moment. Inner peace. He wasn't sure he'd ever felt that in his life. His entire existence was a loud, chaotic struggle for recognition. Close your eyes, Akari instructed. Do not seek the power within you. The Nine Tails is a roaring furnace. Seeking it is easy. Instead, listen to the silence. Feel the hum of this sanctuary. It is the same energy that flows through the trees, the earth, the very air you breathe. It is quiet. It is gentle. You must become quiet and gentle to perceive it. Draw it into yourself, not with force, but with an invitation. Open your spirit and let it flow in. Naruto squeezed his eyes shut. Okay, easy enough. Just be quiet and gentle. He took a deep breath. The air was clean and sweet. He focused on the silence. For about 3 seconds it worked. Then his mind, a restless creature accustomed to constant motion, began to rebel. Okay, feeling the hum. It's kinda like the buzz from the lights in the academy classroom. I wonder if Irika-sensei misses me? Probably glad for the peace and quiet. I should bring him something back from this place. Can I take one of those silver fish? Probably not. Maybe I can learn a super cool seal and show it to him. And Sasuke, the look on his face when I use a jutsu with no hand signs, a sharp, unpleasant jolt, like a static shock to his brain, snapped him out of his reverie. Your focus has scattered, Akari's voice stated, without judgment. Your spirit is a whirlwind of mundane thoughts. You are attempting to listen for a whisper in a hurricane. Banish the storm. Find your center. Naruto gritted his teeth. Stupid brain. Just shut up for 5 minutes. He tried again. He focused on his breathing, the in and out a simple rhythm to anchor himself. He tried to feel the sanctuary's hum. He found it again, a faint vibration at the edge of his senses. He reached for it with his consciousness, trying to gently pull it toward him. As he did, he brushed against the edge of the Kyuubi's presence. The fox was sullen and resentful after its defeat at the gate, but it was far from beaten. It felt his attempt to connect with the sanctuary's pure energy, and it reacted with spiteful malice. A tiny needle of red, hateful chakra pricked at his concentration. You seek to chain me with this light, boy? The fox's voice snarled in the back of his mind. You are nothing without my power. This placid energy is for the weak. Shut up, Naruto muttered under his breath. The intrusion broke his focus. The connection to the hum was lost. Frustration, hot and familiar, flared in his chest. Again, Akari said patiently. They continued for hours. Each attempt followed the same pattern. Naruto would quiet his mind, begin to feel the serene energy, and then one of two things would happen. Either his own restless thoughts would derail him, or the Kyuubi would lash out with a jab of malevolent chakra, a spiteful whisper, a flash of a terrifying memory. Each failure fed his frustration, making the next attempt even harder. The inner peace Akari spoke of felt like a distant, impossible country he would never visit. Kakashi watched from the edge of the dojo, his back against a pillar. He saw the struggle on Naruto's face, the intense concentration, the twitch of his brow in frustration, the way his fists would clench at his sides. He couldn't sense the subtle energies Akari described, but he could feel the results. Every now and then, a tiny, brilliant spark of gold light would appear on Naruto's skin, only to be immediately snuffed out by a fizz of angry red chakra, like a drop of water hitting a hot pan. Each time it happened, Naruto would flinch as if struck. "This isn't working," Naruto finally burst out, his eyes flying open. He was glaring at his own hands. "I can't do it. I can't be quiet and gentle. It's not who I am. Every time I get close, the fox, it just messes everything up. Or I start thinking about ramen. How am I supposed to just turn off my brain?" "The goal is not to turn off your mind, but to master it," Akari corrected smoothly. "The Nine Tails is a part of you. Your thoughts are a part of you. You are trying to fight a battle on two fronts, against yourself and against your prisoner. This is why you fail." Naruto slumped, defeated. "So what do I do? How can I be at peace when there's a monster screaming in my head?" "We will try again tomorrow," Akari stated. "Rest. Meditate on your failures. Understanding why you fail is the first step to success." The being of light then turned and flowed silently toward the library, leaving Naruto stewing in his own frustration. The next 2 days were a symphony of failure. Naruto tried everything he could think of. He tried focusing so hard his head throbbed. He tried thinking about nothing, which was impossible. He tried thinking about one thing, a leaf, a rock, the taste of ramen, but his mind always strayed. The clash of energies became more violent. His frustration was a fuel, and the Kyuubi drank it down greedily. With each failed attempt, the fox's influence grew stronger. The sparks of red and gold chakra erupting from his skin were no longer small fizzles. They were painful, jarring explosions of dissonant energy. "Gah!" Naruto cried out, clutching his stomach as a particularly nasty feedback loop sent a wave of pain through him. A visible ripple of red and gold energy pulsed outwards, cracking the flawless wooden floor of the dojo. Kakashi was on his feet in an instant. "Naruto!" Naruto was panting, sweat plastering his blonde hair to his forehead. He looked up at Akari, his blue eyes filled with desperation and a hint of feral anger, the fox's anger, bleeding through. "It's no use. The more I try to be calm, the angrier it gets. And the angrier it gets, the more frustrated I get. It's a stupid, endless circle." He slammed his fist on the ground, creating another, smaller crack. "Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this sacred light stuff. My mom was wrong. All I'm good for is breaking things." He curled into himself, his shoulders shaking. The bravado was gone, replaced by a raw, painful despair. He had been given this one incredible chance to connect with his mother's legacy, to become something more than the village monster, and he was failing. He was letting her down. He was letting down the fourth Hokage. He was just a failure, plain and simple. Akari remained silent for a long moment, its featureless head tilted as if analyzing the boy's emotional collapse. Kakashi took a step forward, intending to offer some kind of comfort, but Akari raised a glowing hand, halting him. "You have finally arrived at the true first lesson, Naruto Uzumaki," Akari said, its voice holding a new resonance. "You believe you are failing because you cannot defeat the chaos within you." "Yeah. Obviously." Naruto shot back, his voice thick with unshed tears. "You are incorrect," Akari stated. "You are failing because you are trying to defeat it. You are treating the Nine Tails, and indeed your own turbulent emotions, as an enemy to be suppressed, a dragon to be slain. This is the fallacy of your approach." Naruto looked up, confused. "But it is the enemy. It's a monster. It hates me. It wants to destroy everything. It is a being of immense, chaotic power," Akari corrected. "Your mother's cradle seal was not designed to destroy that chaos. The Amatsukami art is not one of destruction. It is the art of order. You cannot have order without chaos to act upon. One defines the other. A perfectly empty room cannot be ordered. It is simply empty. The being of light flowed closer, standing over the distraught boy. Your power, the sacred light, is not a weapon to obliterate the darkness. It is a riverbank, designed to guide the raging torrent of the river. You have been trying to build a dam to stop the river. The pressure builds, and the dam cracks, again and again. You will never succeed this way. The metaphor clicked in Naruto's mind. A riverbank, guiding the flow. You must stop fighting the nine tails, Akari continued. You must stop fighting your own frustration, your own anger. Accept it. Acknowledge its presence. It is a part of the landscape of your soul. Your task is not to level the mountains of your rage, but to build a path through them. Let the river of the Kyuubi's chakra flow. But you will be the banks. Your will, your intent, your sacred light, will dictate its course. You must harmonize with your shadow, not seek to banish it. Harmony. The harmony of light and shadow. The chapter title of his own life right now. Naruto stared at Akari, the concept slowly taking root in his exhausted mind. Stop fighting. Accept it. How? He whispered. How do I do that? By starting small, Akari said. It flowed over to the serene pond, dipped a hand into the glowing water, and came back with a simple, undecorated ceramic cup, filled to the brim. It placed the cup on the dojo floor in front of Naruto. The theory is meaningless without practical application, Akari stated. This cup contains pure water from the sanctuary's spring. It is perfectly ordered, perfectly calm. It then looked at Naruto. Now I want you to taint it. Reach into yourself, connect with the Nine Tails' hatred, not its power, its raw malice, and release a single, controlled drop into this water. Naruto recoiled. What? Why would I do that? Because you must understand the chaos before you can order it, Akari explained. Do it. Hesitantly, Naruto did as he was told. He closed his eyes and, for the first time, he didn't fight the red energy. He sought it out. He let the Kyuubi's rage brush against his consciousness and pulled a tiny, infinitesimal thread of it, focusing it through his fingertip. A droplet of viscous, oily crimson chakra seeped from his finger and fell into the cup. The effect was instantaneous and horrific. The moment the drop hit the surface, the clear water writhed. It turned a murky, swirling blackish red, and a foul, sulphurous steam rose from it. The water, which had been cool and pure, began to seethe and bubble as if boiling, though it remained cold to the touch. It was no longer water. It was liquid hatred. Good, Akari said unfazed. Now your task is to restore it. Use your sacred light to purify the water. Make it clear again. Naruto stared at the corrupted water. This seemed more manageable. A clear goal. He remembered his mother's message, purify the darkest chakra. This was it. He took a deep breath, placed his hands around the cup, and tried his old method. He focused his will, trying to blast the red taint with a wave of purifying energy. He envisioned a powerful jet of golden light hitting the water and scouring it clean. Fzzz crack. A violent spark of dissonant energy erupted between his hands. The ceramic cup exploded, sending shards and foul, steaming water everywhere. Naruto yelped and fell backward, his palms stinging. Incorrect, Akari stated calmly, already returning from the pond with a second, identical cup of water. You attempted to destroy the chaos with brute force. You tried to build a dam. The resulting pressure shattered the vessel. Try again. They repeated the process. Naruto tainted the water, then tried to fix it. He tried to overwhelm the red chakra. The cup cracked. He tried to absorb the red chakra into himself. A wave of nausea and rage washed over him, and he nearly threw up. He tried to physically separate the red from the clear with his chakra. The water sloshed out, a chaotic mess. Each failure was a lesson, but a painful one. He went through 5 cups. 6. 7. The pile of broken ceramic at the edge of the dojo grew. His frustration returned, but this time, he remembered Akari's words. He acknowledged the frustration. Okay, I'm angry. Fine. That's part of me. But it's not the part that's going to solve this. He sat before the 8th cup of tainted water, utterly exhausted. Kakashi watched, a deep worry etched on his face, but he remained silent, honoring the strange lesson. Naruto closed his eyes and just breathed. He didn't try to summon the light. He didn't try to do anything. He just sat. He felt his own frustration. He felt the Kyuubi's simmering malice, watching him, mocking his failure. He felt the serene hum of the sanctuary all around him. They were all there. Light, shadow, and the boy caught between them. A riverbank, he thought. Not a dam. A guide, not a weapon. He remembered his mother's name for her seal. The cradle seal. A cradle doesn't crush a baby. It holds it. It protects it. It keeps it safe. It surrounds it. Surround it. A new idea bloomed in his mind, born not of force, but of acceptance. He opened his eyes and looked at the corrupted water. He wasn't going to blast it. He was going to embrace it. He placed his hands around the cup again. This time, he didn't try to summon a powerful beam of light. He focused on that gentle, serene hum of the sanctuary and invited it in. Because he wasn't fighting himself anymore, the connection was easier, clearer. A soft, warm, golden light began to emanate from his palms. It was gentle, not forceful. Instead of directing it at the tainted water, he visualized the light seeping into it, spreading out. He didn't imagine a hammer. He imagined a net. A perfect, microscopic net made of woven golden light. He visualized the net passing through the water. The water molecules, being of a neutral, ordered state, slipped right through the net's mesh. But the Kyuubi's chakra, the physical embodiment of hatred, of chaos, was too coarse, too dissonant. It couldn't pass through. Slowly, gently, he visualized himself pulling the net upwards, through the water. It was like sifting for gold. The pure water was left behind, while the foul, red-black sludge of the Kyuubi's malice was caught in the golden mesh of his sacred light. He could feel it working. The water in the cup began to change. The angry bubbling subsided. The murky black faded, and the violent red began to lighten. He pulled the net tighter, compressing the captured malice. The water became clearer and clearer, until it was once again pristine and transparent. All the tainted energy was now gathered in his golden chakra, contained in a tiny, dense sphere of seething red held at the center of a cage of light. It pulsed angrily, a trapped beast, but it was completely isolated from the water. With a final act of will, Naruto pulled the sphere of contained chaos out of the cup. It hovered above his palm, a marble of pure hatred held in a golden cage. He then applied the final principle, order. He willed the chaotic energy to simply cease. The golden cage tightened not with force, but with a conceptual finality, and the red sphere within dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind only the scent of ozone and the faint echo of a silent scream. Naruto stared at the cup. It was full of crystal-clear water. He was breathing heavily, his entire body trembling with exhaustion. It had taken almost all of his mental energy. But he had done it. He looked up at Akari. I did it. You did, Akari confirmed. Its unchanging form somehow seemed to convey approval. You did not destroy the chaos. You separated it, contained it, and restored order. You have harmonized light and shadow. You have taken your first true step on the path of the Amatsukami. A huge, brilliant grin split Naruto's exhausted face. It was the purest, happiest smile Kakashi had ever seen from him. It was the smile of a boy who had not just mastered a new skill, but had conquered a piece of his own soul. Just then, a small puff of smoke appeared near Kakashi's feet. Pakken, his smallest and gruffest Niken, stood there, a small scroll strapped to his back. Yo, Kakashi, the pug grumbled. Got a message for you from the old man. Took me forever to track your chakra signature to whatever this place is. Smells too clean. Kakashi knelt, untying the scroll. He read it quickly, his single eye widening slightly. He looked over at Naruto, who was still admiring his handiwork. Naruto, Kakashi said, his voice pulling Naruto from his reverie. That was a message from Lord Third. Is everything okay in the village? Naruto asked, suddenly anxious. The village is fine, Kakashi said. But he sent us an update. The final stage of the Chunin exams begins in 4 weeks. Naruto's eyes lit up. The Chunin exams. In his focus on this new training, he had almost forgotten. But now, the exam took on a whole new meaning. Before, it had been about proving to everyone that he wasn't a loser, about getting one step closer to being Hokage. Now, It was something more. He looked at his hands, which could now wield a power thought lost to the world. He felt the deep, resonant hum of the cradle seal within him, no longer a source of conflict, but a silent partner. The exam wouldn't just be a fight. It would be a testing ground. A chance to apply what he had learned, to see how his newfound art worked against real opponents, in a real battle. A chance to test his control in a high-stakes environment without revealing the earth-shattering secret of his heritage. He had a secret. He had a new power. And now, he had a new goal. A quiet, confident resolve settled over him, displacing the last vestiges of his exhaustion. He wasn't just the dead last anymore. He was the heir to a forgotten legacy, and he was about to show the world, in his own subtle way, what the last son of the Amatsukami could do. The transition from the serene, timeless dawn of the Amatsukami sanctuary back to the boisterous, sun-drenched reality of Konoha was a jarring sensory overload. One moment, Naruto was breathing the clean, energy-infused air of his ancestral home. The next, he was standing in the Hokage's office, the familiar scent of old paper, ink, and Hiruzen's pipe smoke filling his lungs. The return journey through the portal of light was as disorienting as the first, leaving him feeling as though he'd woken from a profound dream. But it hadn't been a dream. The proof was a quiet hum deep within him, a newfound harmony where once there had been only conflict. He could feel the Kyubi, a vast and powerful ocean of chakra, but it was no longer a raging tsunami threatening to drown him. The cradle seal, his mother's legacy, now felt like a tangible part of him, a golden lattice of serene energy that contained the beast's malice, allowing him to feel its power without being consumed by its hate. The progress you've made is astonishing, Hiruzen said, his voice laced with awe as he looked at Naruto. The boy stood straighter, his usual restless energy tempered by a quiet, centered confidence. The frantic, desperate need for attention in his eyes had been replaced by a calm, focused resolve. It was still Naruto, but a more mature, more grounded version. 4 weeks in the sanctuary has accomplished what I feared might take years. Akari is a good teacher, Naruto said, a small, genuine smile on his face. Even if it's just a talking light construct thingy. And Kakashi-sensei helped too. Kakashi, leaning against the wall, gave a slight eye smile. I mostly just watched and try not to get hit by exploding cups, he said in his usual lazy drawl, but Hiruzen could see the deep-seated pride in his student's gaze. The Chunin exam finals are in 3 days, Hiruzen reminded them, his expression turning serious. The village is buzzing with foreign dignitaries and shinobi. Security is at its peak. Your return must be handled discreetly. The official story remains, a successful, classified Fuinjutsu training mission. He looked directly at Naruto. Your preliminary match against Kiba was unexpected. Your use of that barrier was seen by every jonin in the room. There are already whispers. Be mindful, Naruto. The Seiko no Fuin is a power of order and light, but do not mistake it for a power that cannot be used with subtlety. In the arena, you will be under scrutiny. Reveal only what you must. Naruto nodded, his expression sober. I understand, old man. I won't let my mom and dad's secret out. The ease with which he said mom and dad sent a pang of warmth and sorrow through both Hiruzen and Kakashi. The reunion with his team was awkward. They met at their usual spot on the bridge. Sakura, whose hair was slightly longer, rushed forward, her initial relief at seeing him quickly morphing into her customary annoyance. Naruto, you idiot! Where have you been? Lord Hokage just said you were on a mission, but you were gone for a month. We were worried, she scolded, though the undercurrent of genuine concern was unmistakable. Sasuke stood apart, his arms crossed, his dark eyes narrowed in silent, intense scrutiny. He wasn't looking at Naruto, he was analyzing him. He could feel the change. Naruto's chakra signature, while still immense and chaotic on the surface, had a new quality to it, a deep, underlying stillness that hadn't been there before. The wild, untamed energy felt tethered. It unnerved him. Sorry, Sakura-chan, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck with a grin that felt both familiar and slightly foreign. It was a super-secret S-rank mission. Believe it. I learned some amazing new stuff. More amazing than your last trick? Sasuke's voice cut in, sharp and skeptical. He was referring to the barrier against Kiba. What was that jutsu? It had no hand signs. Naruto's smile didn't falter, but his eyes became carefully guarded. That's part of the secret. It's a special kind of Fuin jutsu. Really advanced stuff. The lie was flimsy, but it was all he had. Sasuke's gaze hardened. He saw the evasion. The secret Naruto was now holding close. It was another wall between them, another sign that Naruto was pulling ahead with some mysterious power while Sasuke was left grappling with the cursed seal Orochimaru had branded him with, a power that felt foul and parasitic, the polar opposite of whatever Naruto now possessed. The seed of jealousy, planted long ago, had found fertile ground in Naruto's absence and had begun to sprout thorny, bitter vines. The tension was broken by Kakashi's arrival. All right, team, settle down. We have the next 3 days to get back in sync before the finals. Let's start with some light sparring. The light sparring was anything but. When Naruto faced Sasuke, the change was immediately apparent. Naruto's movements were more fluid, more economical. He was no longer just a brawler relying on guts and shadow clones. He dodged Sasuke's precise, Sharingan-guided strikes with a newfound clarity, his body moving with a calm efficiency that frustrated the Uchiha to no end. He wasn't just reacting, he seemed to anticipate, to flow around the attacks like water around a rock. He was holding back. Sasuke could feel it. And it was infuriating. The day of the finals arrived, bringing with it a wave of excitement and tension that washed over the entire village. But as the crowd cheered and the first match began, a different kind of drama was unfolding in the shadows. The plan for the Konoha Crush was in motion, and in the dark, predator-filled expanse of the Forest of Death, a new player had just made a move that would change the board entirely. The forest was a cacophony of unnatural silence. The usual chirps of insects and calls of birds were absent, scared into hiding by a palpable, slithering malevolence. The air was cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something acrid, like burnt snake scales. Enko Mitarashi, the proctor for the second exam, was on a grim mission. 3 days ago, a team of grass genin had been found, their faces melted off, their bodies drained of all life. It was a signature she recognized with a sickening lurch in her stomach. Orochimaru. He had been here. He had infiltrated her exam. She moved through the trees, a blur of motion, her senses on high alert. She was heading for the central tower, but a sudden, massive chakra spike diverted her course. It was titanic, monstrous, and filled with a familiar, sinister power. A giant snake. She arrived at a clearing to a scene of devastation. A colossal serpent, larger than any natural creature, lay dead, its body riddled with wounds. But it wasn't the snake that held her attention. It was the 3 sound genin standing over the bruised and battered forms of Team 10, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. The sound nin reeked of Orochimaru's influence. Before Enko could intervene, another variable entered the equation. Sasuke Uchiha, his Sharingan blazing, dropped from the trees, followed closely by Sakura. The ensuing fight was brutal. The sound nin were vicious, their abilities strange and unsettling. Sasuke, driven by a desperate need to test his own power, fought with a savage intensity. It was then that everything went wrong. As Sasuke prepared his final attack, the cursed seal on his neck flared to life. Black markings, like jagged flames, spread across the left side of his body. He screamed, a raw, agonized sound, and collapsed, writhing on the ground as the foul chakra flooded his system. From the shadows of a massive, gnarled tree, a figure watched with hungry, golden eyes. Orochimaru, disguised in a stolen face, licked his lips with a long, serpentine tongue. The cursed seal was activating beautifully. Sasuke's hatred and desperation were the perfect catalysts. The boy's body was adapting, proving itself a worthy vessel. But then, the unexpected happened. A flash of orange and a shout of pure, unadulterated rage. Get away from him! Naruto Uzumaki landed in the clearing, his blue eyes blazing with a protective fury. He had felt the spike of Sasuke's cursed chakra from a distance, and had rushed to the scene. He saw Sakura trying to fend off the sound nin, saw Ino and her team unconscious, and saw Sasuke, his rival, his friend, convulsing on the ground in agony. Something inside him snapped. He felt the familiar surge of the Kyuubi's rage, a hot tide rising in response to his own anger. But this time, it was different. He felt the cradle seal flare to life in response, a calm, golden counterwave that met the red tide. He didn't have to fight it. He let the two forces meet and harmonize. A thin cloak of red chakra, bubbling and furious, enveloped him. But overlaid on top of it, faint but distinct, was a shimmering lattice of golden lines. The malevolent aura of the Kyuubi was still there, but it was tempered, filtered, contained. His blue eyes gained the crimson slit of the fox, but they did not lose their focus, their humanity. "Naruto!" Sakura whispered, staring in awe and terror at the transformed boy. Orochimaru's eyes widened, his detached, scientific curiosity suddenly piqued. He recognized the Kyuubi's chakra cloak, but this was different. The golden energy interwoven with it, it felt ancient, it felt pure. It felt like the absolute antithesis of the curse seal, of his own forbidden jutsu, of his very philosophy of existence. It was a light that sought to impose order on the Kyuubi's beautiful, magnificent chaos. What was this? The sound Nin, Dosu, Zaku, and Kin saw only a target. Zaku, his arms covered in air vents, thrust his palms forward. Decapitating airwaves, a blast of compressed air and sound, powerful enough to pulverize rock, shot toward Naruto. Naruto didn't dodge. Acting on pure instinct, an ingrained lesson from his time with Akari, he brought his hands together. He didn't form a seal. He simply focused his intent. Protect. A simple, three-pronged seal, the same barrier of stillness he had used against Kiba, flashed into existence before him. It was no longer just a wall of light, infused with the raw power of the Kyuubi's chakra. It was now a swirling vortex of crimson and gold. The blast of air and sound hit the barrier and was not just stopped, it was unmade. The kinetic energy was absorbed, the sound waves were silenced, and the compressed air was simply dispersed, becoming a gentle breeze that ruffled Naruto's hair. Zaku stared in disbelief, his arms smoking from the backlash. What? It just vanished. Naruto didn't give them time to recover. He moved, his speed enhanced by the Kyuubi's power, appearing before Zaku in an instant. He didn't need a Rasengan. He didn't need a complex jutsu. He drew back his fist, and as he did, he instinctively applied the most basic principle Akari had taught him, the concept of purification through contact. He focused a minuscule amount of his sacred light, a tiny, almost invisible seal, onto the knuckles of his right hand. His fist slammed into Zaku's stomach. The physical impact was immense, lifting the sound Nin off his feet. But the secondary effect was far more devastating. The moment the seal on Naruto's knuckles made contact, it discharged its stored energy. A brilliant flash of golden light erupted at the point of impact. Zaku screamed, but it was a strange, choked sound. It wasn't just a scream of pain. It was a scream of violation. The golden light didn't just injure him, it surged through his chakra network. The foreign, Orochimaru-infused chakra that gave him his power was instantly, violently purified. It was like pouring holy water into a vat of poison. The delicate balance of his chakra pathways was shattered, not by destructive force, but by the imposition of an absolute, alien purity. Zaku flew backward, crashing into a tree, and slumped to the ground unconscious. His teammates, Dosu and Kin, stared in horror. His chakra signature hadn't just been disrupted, a significant portion of it had been erased. Orochimaru, hidden in the trees, felt a jolt as if he'd been struck himself. He had a link to the chakra he gave his subordinates. He had felt the moment Naruto's fist connected. He'd felt that golden energy, pure and searing, obliterate his own chakra signature within Zaku. It didn't fight it. It simply unraveled it, returning it to a state of melody. His obsession with the Sharingan, the prize he had sought for years, was suddenly eclipsed. The Sharingan could copy, it could predict, it could cast illusions. It was a magnificent tool for a shinobi, but this power Naruto wielded, it didn't play by the rules. It rewrote them. It was a fundamental force, a conceptual power. It didn't destroy. It purified. It ordered. The potential, To purify a body of its imperfections before a soul transfer, eliminating rejection entirely. To unravel any fuinjutsu, no matter how complex. To potentially even purify death itself. To restore life not through forbidden Edo Tensei, but by reimposing the order of life onto a body. A greedy, rapacious hunger, more potent than any he had ever felt, ignited within Orochimaru. He had to understand this power. He had to possess it. The Uchiha vessel was a means to an end, a path to immortality. But this boy, this Jinchuriki, his body contained the secret to divinity itself. In the clearing, Naruto turned his crimson gold gaze on the remaining two Sannin. Dosu, the leader, saw the look in Naruto's eyes and felt a primal fear he hadn't experienced since first meeting Lord Orochimaru. This was not the goofy, loud-mouthed genin from the first exam. This was something ancient and terrible wearing his face. "We forfeit!" Dosu called out, raising his hands. He grabbed the unconscious Kin and Zaku. "We have our scroll. We're done." He retreated, not wanting any part of the monster that stood before him. As soon as the immediate threat was gone, the crimson gold cloak around Naruto flickered and died, the strain of maintaining it still new to him. The adrenaline faded, and a wave of exhaustion hit him. He stumbled, catching himself on a tree. "Naruto!" Sakura cried, rushing to his side. She was battered and bruised but otherwise unharmed. Her eyes were wide with questions he knew he couldn't answer. He ignored his own fatigue and pushed past her, his focus entirely on the figure still twitching on the ground. He knelt beside Sasuke. The black markings of the curse seal were receding, but Sasuke's breathing was shallow, his face pale and slick with a cold sweat. His chakra was in utter chaos, a war between his own natural energy and the invasive, venomous power of the seal. Naruto thought back to the lesson with the cup of water. Tainted energy. His task had been to separate the chaos and restore order. The curse seal was the ultimate taint. He remembered Akari's words, "You are a riverbank, not a dam." He couldn't destroy the curse seal, not without knowing what it was. But maybe he could calm it down. Hesitantly, he placed his palm over the curse seal on Sasuke's neck. He didn't try to touch it directly. He let his hand hover a centimeter above the skin. He closed his eyes, shutting out Sakura's worried questions and the oppressive atmosphere of the forest. He found his center, the quiet place he had fought so hard to create. He drew on his sacred light, not as a weapon, but as a balm. A soft, gentle, golden glow emanated from his palm. He didn't push the energy into Sasuke. He let it radiate outwards, a passive aura of pure, conceptual order. He visualized it as a gentle warmth, a soothing hum, that would calm the raging storm of the cursed seal's chakra without trying to eradicate it. Under his hand, the violent, spiky purple chakra of the cursed seal, which had been lashing out like a cornered animal, began to slow. It didn't vanish. But it ceased its frantic thrashing. The aggressive energy seemed to quieten, to settle, lulled into a state of dormancy by the overwhelming serenity of Naruto's Amatsukami aura. It was like singing a lullaby to a screaming demon. The demon was still there, but it had fallen asleep. Sasuke's violent convulsions stopped. His breathing evened out, deepening into the rhythm of a peaceful slumber. The pained, tense lines on his face relaxed. Sakura watched, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had seen medical ninjutsu. Kabuto had healed her earlier with precise, green chakra. This was not that. Naruto wasn't healing the injury. He was pacifying the poison. The golden light from his hand was warm, gentle, and felt incredibly safe. It was the antithesis of the foul energy that had been radiating from Sasuke's neck. Naruto held his hand there for another minute, ensuring the cursed seal was completely quiescent. He felt a deep, profound exhaustion settle into his bones. Using his power on another person, even this passively, was a massive drain. The principle was the same as purifying the water, but the scale was infinitely more complex. He withdrew his hand, the golden light fading. He swayed on his feet, the world tilting slightly. He'll be okay, he mumbled, his voice raspy. He just needs to rest. Sakura caught him as he stumbled, her mind reeling. First, the golden barrier against Kiba. Now, a strange, powerful chakra cloak and a golden light that could calm a cursed seal and defeat an enemy with a single touch. Who was he? What had happened to him on that secret mission? The goofy, lovable, idiotic boy she had always known was still there, but he was now wrapped in a layer of ancient power and profound secrets she couldn't begin to fathom. Just then, Team 10 began to stir, groaning as they regained consciousness. Ino sat up, holding her head. What happened? Her eyes fell on Naruto, then on the sleeping Sasuke, then on Sakura. Before anyone could try to explain the inexplicable, the Rio Proctor finally arrived. Anko Mitarashi dropped from the canopy, her expression grim. Her eyes took in the scene, the dead giant snake, the 3 battered teams, the scorched marks and cracked earth. Her gaze landed on Sasuke, and she saw it. The 3 tomos swirling on his neck. Orochimaru's cursed seal. Her own past came rushing back, a phantom pain from her own seal. So, he came for the Uchiha, she whispered, her face pale. Then her eyes shifted to Naruto, sensing the bizarre, lingering cocktail of chakra around him, the echo of the Kyuubi, but also the faint, clean scent of that other, purer energy. It was the same signature that had flared during the preliminary match. The signature that had every sensor type in the village talking. She knew she was looking at the epicenter of something far bigger and more dangerous than a simple Chunin exam invasion. Naruto, running on fumes, met her gaze. He now knew he had a target on his back, one far more dangerous and obsessive than a few sound nin. Orochimaru had seen his power. The whispers in the forest of death were no longer just the rustling of leaves. They were the hushed, hungry promises of a snake that had just found a new, and far more divine, prey. He had protected his friend, but in doing so, he had painted a target on his soul.